Every pack turned away the disabled pup until the Wolfless Omega carried him 10 miles through snow. "The decision is final," Adam Simpson said. His voice was a low rumble, devoid of malice but stripped of mercy. He stood at the head of the table, his shoulders broad enough to block out the firelight, casting a long, jagged shadow over the trembling bundle in the center of the room. "The pup is born with a twisted hind leg. The winter is already harsh. We cannot allocate resources to a wolf that will never hunt, never fight, and never run." The mother of the pup sobbed silently, but in the corner, hidden in the shadows where the servants stood, Eva Tucker tightened her grip on the serving tray until her knuckles turned white. She was the Wolfless, the genetic dead end, the Omega who couldn't shift. She had no voice here. But as she looked at the condemned pup, she felt a fire ignite in her chest that was hotter than the hearth and far more dangerous. "He cannot stay," Adam had said. "Then neither will I," Eva thought. The silence that followed Adam Simpson's decree was heavy, suffocating. It was the silence of a predator that had finished eating and was now merely observing the scraps. The council chamber, with its high vaulted ceilings and tapestries depicting the violent history of the Ironwood Pack, felt less like a home and more like a courtroom where the verdict was always guilty. Eva Tucker lowered her gaze, moving mechanically to clear the untouched wine goblets from the table. She was invisible to them. To be wolfless in a pack of shifters was to be furniture, useful, present, but lacking the soul of the wild. She could not smell the pheromones of fear radiating from the pup's mother, nor could she sense the dominance rolling off Adam in waves. But she didn't need a wolf's nose to smell the cruelty. "It is a mercy," Adam continued, his steel-grey eyes scanning the room. He wasn't a cruel man, Eva knew that. He was a mathematician of survival. He calculated calories, territory lines, and combat readiness. "Leaving him to the forest tonight ensures the pack remains strong. We are beset by the southern raiders. We cannot carry dead weight." "He is not dead weight," the mother cried out, only to be silenced by a sharp look from her mate, a high-ranking enforcer who looked more terrified of Adam than he was grieving for his son. "Take him," Adam ordered, turning his back to the room to stare into the roaring fire. "Leave him at the tree line. Nature will take its course." Eva watched as the guard scooped up the bundle. The pup, barely 3 weeks old, let out a mewling sound, a high-pitched, confused cry that sliced through Eva's heart like a serrated blade. It wasn't a defiant roar, it was a plea. She finished her duties with trembling hands. She walked to the kitchen, the stone corridors cold against her thin shoes. The Ironwood Pack prided itself on resilience. Iron sharpens iron, they said, but Eva had always thought that iron also rusted. It grew brittle in the cold. And looking at Adam Simpson, she saw a man who had become so hard he had forgotten how to bend. Eva waited until the moon was high and the blizzard began to howl against the stone walls of the lodge. The wind was her ally tonight. It would mask her scent, or so she hoped. Being wolfless meant she had no scent-masking abilities, but it also meant the guards rarely paid attention to her. Who would suspect the weak, human-like servant of treason? She stole into the mudroom, grabbing the thickest coat she could find, an old, moth-eaten wool parka that belonged to a deceased elder. She grabbed a satchel, stuffing it with dried meat and a flask of water. Then she slipped out the side door. The cold hit her like a physical blow. The wind in the Ironwood territory didn't just blow, it bit. It sought out exposed skin and turned it to ice in minutes. Eva pulled her scarf tight, squinting against the stinging snow. She knew where they left, the rejected. The offering stone, a flat slab of granite a mile from the lodge at the edge of the deep woods. Her legs burned as she trudged through the knee-deep drifts. She wasn't strong like them. She didn't have the supernatural heat of a shifter to keep her warm. Her human blood ran cold, and her teeth began to chatter violently within 10 minutes. "Turn back," her mind screamed. "You'll die out here." But then she heard it, the faint, rhythmic crying over the wind. She pushed forward, her lungs burning. She reached the offering stone. The guard had done his duty and left immediately. The bundle was already half buried in snow. Ava fell to her knees, digging frantically. She pulled the blanket away. The pup was blue, his breathing shallow. His twisted back leg stuck out at an odd angle. He looked up at her, his eyes milky and unfocused. "I've got you," Ava whispered, her voice cracking. "I've got you, little one." She unzipped her oversized parka and pressed the pup against her chest, skin to fur, sharing what little body heat she had. She wrapped the coat tight around them both. She couldn't go back. To return with a condemned pup was a death sentence for both of them. Adam Simpson didn't tolerate insubordination. She looked north. 10 miles away, through the treacherous pass of Dead Man's Ridge, lay the sanctuary of the Grey Haven, a pack known for taking in strays. 10 miles, in a blizzard, without a wolf form. Ava Tucker took a step, then another. She wasn't an alpha. She wasn't a warrior. She was just a woman who refused to let a baby die in the dark. The first mile was adrenaline. The second was agony. The snow wasn't just weather. It was an entity. It swirled around Ava in blinding sheets, erasing the world until there was nothing but white. Up became down. Left became right. The only constant was the weight of the pup against her chest, a small, vibrating heater that kept her heart beating. Ava's boots were not made for this. They were thin leather, designed for kitchen floors, not tundra. The cold seeped through the soles, turning her toes into numb blocks of wood. She stumbled, falling face first into a drift. The snow packed into her collar, melting instantly against her neck and sending shivers down her spine that racked her entire frame. She lay there for a moment, the wind howling like a pack of wolves. It would be so easy to stay, to just close her eyes. The cold was deceptively comforting after the pain passed. It felt like sleep. No. The pup whimpered against her sternum. He shifted, his tiny claws pricking her skin. "I know," Eva rasped, spitting snow from her mouth. "I know it's cold, Leo. We're going to call you Leo. Like a lion. Because you're going to roar." She forced herself up. Her muscles screamed. Every step required a deliberate negotiation with her own biology. Her body wanted to shut down, to conserve energy for the vital organs. Her vision began to blur at the edges. She thought of Adam Simpson. She had served him his meals for 3 years. She had watched him train in the yard, his massive wolf form, a midnight black beast, tearing through practice dummies with terrifying efficiency. He was perfection. He was strength incarnate. And he was wrong. Strength isn't just breaking things, she muttered to the wind, hallucinating a conversation with the alpha. It's holding on when everything tells you to let go. By the 4th mile, the terrain changed. The forest gave way to the rocky incline of the ridge. Here, the wind was fiercer, unimpeded by trees. It whipped ice crystals against her face, cutting small fissures into her cheeks. Ava slipped on a patch of ice hidden beneath the powder. Her knee slammed into the rock with a sickening crack. She screamed, the sound instantly swallowed by the storm. Pain, hot and blinding, shot up her leg. She curled into a ball, clutching Leo. Tears froze on her lashes, sealing her eyes shut. She had to pry them open with shaking fingers. She tried to stand, but her leg buckled. "Okay," she panted, her breath coming in ragged white puffs. "Okay. We crawl." And she did. She dragged herself over the jagged rocks, her hands raw and bleeding, her good leg pushing, her bad leg dragging behind her like a dead weight. It was a grotesque mockery of the pup she carried. Now they were both broken. Inside the coat, Leo had stopped crying. He was quiet. Too quiet. Panic surged through Ava, cutting through the hypothermia fog. She unzipped the coat slightly, looking down. The pup was lethargic, his heartbeat slow. "Don't you dare!" she hissed, rubbing his small body vigorously. "Don't you dare quit on me, Leo. I didn't walk through hell for you to die in my arms." She began to sing. It was a lullaby her mother had sung to her, a human song about sunshine and meadows, things that felt like alien concepts in this frozen wasteland. She sang to keep him awake, to keep herself awake. 5 miles. Halfway. She reached the peak of the ridge. From here, on a clear day, she might have seen the lights of Grey Haven. But tonight, there was only the swirling void. Ava leaned against a boulder, her energy spent. She checked her hands. They were blue, the fingers stiff and unresponsive. Frostbite. She knew the signs. She would lose fingers, maybe toes, if she lived. She looked back the way she came. The tracks were already filling in. No one was coming for them. To the Ironwood pack, she was just a runaway servant, and Leo was a statistic. They were forgotten. But as she stared into the dark abyss of the storm, she realized something. She felt a strange, terrifying freedom. For the first time in her life, she wasn't following orders. She wasn't bowing her head. She was defying the strongest alpha in the territory, and she was doing it with a broken knee and a heart full of spite. "Come and get me, Adam," she whispered into the gale. "You'll never catch us." She pushed off the rock, sliding down the other side of the ridge into the deep, treacherous valley. Adam Simpson did not sleep. Alphas rarely did when a storm this magnitude hit. He sat in his study, reviewing supply manifests, but the numbers blurred before his eyes. Something was wrong. The wolf inside him was pacing, scratching at the back of his mind. It wasn't the storm, it was a scent, or rather, the absence of one. The door to his study creaked open. It was Marcus, his beta. Marcus looked pale. "Alpha," Marcus said, keeping his head low. "There's a situation." Adam looked up, his expression unreadable. "Speak." The kitchen staff reported a theft. Dried meat, water skins, and a coat. Adam frowned. Petty theft happened, usually by younger wolves testing boundaries. "Deal with it, Marcus. Why bring this to me?" "Because," Marcus hesitated, swallowing hard, "Ava Tucker is missing. And the guard at the offering stone." He went back to check on the body, to bury it before the frost hardened the ground too much. Adam went still. The air in the room grew heavy, the pressure dropping as his aura flared. "And?" "The pup is gone, Adam. There were footprints, human footprints, heading north." Adam stood slowly. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Ava. The quiet girl with the large, watchful eyes, the one who smelled like rain and old paper, the one who never spoke out of turn. She had taken the defect. "She's heading for Dead Man's Ridge," Adam said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "In this storm—" "She's human, Adam," Marcus said. "She'll be dead within the hour. The cold, she can't survive it. We should leave them. The storm will do the execution for us." Adam looked at the map on the wall. He traced the route to the ridge. It was suicide. Even a shifted wolf would struggle in this visibility. A human woman carrying a burden? Impossible. And yet, the wolf inside him snarled. It wasn't anger. It was something else. Possession? Concern? insult. She had defied him. She had stolen from the pack. She had taken a genetic liability and tried to save it. It was foolish. It was weak. It was the bravest thing he had ever heard of. "Prepare my gear," Adam ordered, moving to the weapon rack. "You're going after her?" Marcus asked, shocked. "To kill her?" Adam paused, his hand hovering over a hunting knife. She broke the law. She stole a pack member, however broken. She endangered herself. "I go to retrieve what belongs to the pack." "She'll be a corpse by the time you find her," Marcus warned. "Then I will retrieve 2 corpses," Adam snapped. "Move!" Adam shifted the moment he hit the tree line. His clothes shredded. He kept spares in caches along the perimeter, and he exploded into his wolf form. He was massive, a nightmare of muscle and black fur, his eyes glowing gold in the darkness. He caught her scent immediately. It was faint, buried under the smell of ozone and ice, but he found it. Fear, determination, and blood. He ran. He moved with a speed that defied the snow, his paws acting like snowshoes, his muscles generating a furnace of heat. He ate up the miles that had taken Ava hours. He found the blood on the rocks of the ridge. He smelled the fresh injury. She was hurt. Badly. Why? His wolf mind asked. Why suffer for the broken thing? He crested the ridge and looked down. The storm was breaking slightly, the moon peering through the clouds. He saw a dark shape, half buried in the snow, a mile down the slope. It wasn't moving. Adam didn't howl. He didn't growl. He simply tucked his ears back and slid down the shale, scrambling towards the dark smudge in the white world. When he reached her, he shifted back to human form, not caring about the cold. He was radiating heat. She was curled around something, her body frozen in a protective arch. Her skin was the color of marble. Her lips were blue. Her eyelashes were fused with ice. Adam knelt. He reached out, expecting the stiffness of death. Ava gasped. It was a jagged, horrible sound, like air being forced through a crushed pipe. Her eyes fluttered open. They were glassy, unfocused. But when they landed on him, they didn't fill with fear. They filled with fury. "No," she rasped, her voice barely audible. She tightened her grip on the coat. "Mine." Adam stared at her. She was dying. She had crawled through 10 miles of hell, shattered her knee, and frozen her blood, all to defy him. He looked at the bundle. He pulled the zipper down. The pup, Leo, was nestled against her bare skin, warm and sleeping. She had given him everything, every ounce of her heat. Adam Simpson, the Iron Alpha, felt something crack in his chest. It sounded like the gavel hitting the table, but this time it was his own certainty breaking apart. "You foolish girl," Adam whispered, his voice shaking. "He's alive," Ava managed, her eyes rolling back. "He wins." She went limp. Adam didn't think. He didn't calculate resources. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. He ripped off his own thermal shirt, wrapping it around her. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her easily. She weighed nothing. She was fragile as glass, yet she had just proven herself stronger than any warrior in his guard. He looked at the pup, then at the woman. "We'll see," Adam growled. He didn't turn back toward the Ironwood Lodge. The storm blocked the retreat. He looked north, toward the caves of the sanctuary. He held the Wolfless Omega and the broken pup against his chest, and he began to walk. He was the Alpha. And tonight, his pack had just changed. The cave was little more than a jagged throat in the mountainside, a narrow fissure that opened into a damp, shallow hollow protected from the wind. It smelled of old earth and ancient bears, but to Adam it smelled like the only chance they had. He laid Ava down on the flattest stone he could find, the movement jarring a pained, unconscious moan from her lips. She was fading. The blue tint of her lips had deepened to a terrifying violet, and the tremors that had racked her small frame earlier had stopped. That was the worst sign. It meant her body had given up the fight to generate heat. Adam paced the small space, his alpha instincts screaming. Protect, defend, survive. But there was no enemy here to tear apart, no rival pack to intimidate. The enemy was the air itself, stealing the life from the woman who had defied him. He looked at the bundle she had guarded so fiercely. The pup, Leo, was awake. The little creature wiggled out of the makeshift swaddle of Ava's coat, his twisted hind leg dragging uselessly behind him as he crawled, not away, but toward Ava's face. He whined, licking the frost from her cheek with a rough, pink tongue. Adam stared. The pup should be dead. By all the laws of the ironwood, a runt left in a storm died within the hour. But the pup was warm. Ava had acted as a human shield, absorbing the cold meant for the child. She traded her life for a defect, Adam thought, frustration warring with a grudging, confused awe. It is illogical. It is waste. But as he watched the pup nuzzle into the crook of Ava's neck, seeking the fading warmth of his savior, Adam felt the crack in his chest widen. It was an ache he hadn't felt since he was a pup himself, before his father taught him that emotion was a leak in the vessel of power. He couldn't start a fire. There was no dry wood above the timberline, only rock and ice. He looked at Ava, then at his own hands. He was a furnace. His metabolism, heightened by his alpha blood, burned hot enough to melt snow on contact. There was only one way. Adam stripped off his remaining gear, his boots, his heavy trousers, until he was down to his skin. The cold air bit at him, but his internal fire pushed back. He moved to the stone slab and lay down behind Ava. He hesitated. He was the alpha. She was a servant, a wolfless. To share a bed, even a stone one, was a breach of hierarchy so profound it would have scandalized the council. But then Ava's breath hitched, a shallow, rattling sound that signaled the end. Adam pulled her against him. The shock of her cold skin was like pressing against a glacier. He hissed, instinctively recoiling, then forced himself to wrap his arms around her. He pulled her back flush against his chest, tangling his legs with hers to maximize the contact. He grabbed the thick wool coat she had stolen and threw it over them both, creating a cocoon of wool and heat. "Breathe, Tucker," he commanded softly, his lips near her frozen ear. "That is an order." He pushed his aura into her, not to dominate, but to anchor. He fed his body heat into the space between them, willing his blood to warm hers. For a long time, nothing happened. She was a statue of ice in his arms. Then, the pup moved. Leo, sensing the new source of heat, scrambled over Ava's shoulder and wedged himself between them, right against Ava's heart. The small ball of fur began to purr, a low, rhythmic rumble that vibrated through Adam's chest. Hours passed in the darkness. The storm raged outside, sealing the cave entrance with a drift of white, but inside, the temperature began to rise. Adam listened to the wind and thought of the woman in his arms. He knew her face, of course. He had seen her 1,000 times, but he had never seen her. He hadn't noticed the calluses on her hands, the scar on her neck, the way her hair smelled of lavender soap and resilience. She shifted. A small, ragged gasp escaped her. Then another. Her body jerked, the violent shivers returning as her core temperature rose enough to restart her defenses. "It hurts," she murmured in her sleep, her voice broken. "I know," Adam whispered, tightening his hold. "Pain is life. Keep feeling it." He didn't sleep. He held the wolfless girl and the broken pup while the world tried to kill them, and for the first time in his tenure as Alpha, he didn't feel like a ruler. He felt like a shield. Dawn did not bring sunlight. It brought a grey, diffused luminescence that filtered through the snow-blocked entrance of the cave. The storm had broken, leaving behind a silence so profound it felt heavy. Ava woke to the sensation of fire. Her first thought was that she had been caught, and the council was burning her at the stake for treason. Heat enveloped her, pressing against her back, wrapping around her legs. But it wasn't the searing pain of flame. It was solid. It breathed. She opened her eyes, blinking against the grit. She was staring at the cave wall. She tried to move, but an arm, heavy as an iron bar, was draped over her waist, holding her fast. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in her chest. She remembered the snow, the pain, the fall. She tried to scramble away, but her body betrayed her. Her muscles were stiff, her knee screamed in protest, and she barely managed to roll onto her back. She froze. Looming over her, propped up on one elbow, was Adam Simpson. His hair was messy, his eyes dark with exhaustion, and he was shirtless. The heat she had felt was him. "You," she breathed, the word strangling in her throat. She scrambled backward, hitting the rock wall, ignoring the agony in her leg. "You came to kill us!" Adam didn't move. He watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "If I wanted you dead, Ava, I would have stayed by the fire in my study and let the frost take you." Ava pulled the coat tighter around herself, her eyes darting around the cave. "Where is he?" "The pup is fine," Adam said, nodding toward the foot of the stone slab. Leo was gnawing happily on a strip of dried meat Adam must have pulled from his own rations. The pup looked up, ears perking, and gave a small, happy yip. Ava let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She looked back at Adam, her fear hardening into defensive anger. "Why? Why save us? You're the one who sentenced him." "I sentenced him to nature," Adam corrected, sitting up. The movement made the muscles in his back ripple, a display of power that made the small cave feel shrinking. "You decided to intervene. You stole from the pack. You deserted." "I saved a life," Ava snapped. The outburst surprised her. She had never raised her voice to an alpha. "He isn't a statistic, Adam. He's a living thing. Just because he can't hunt for your glory doesn't mean he doesn't deserve to breathe." Adam went quiet. He looked at the pup, then back at her. "In the Ironwood, weakness is death. If we carry the weak, we slow the pack. If we slow the pack, the raiders catch us. Then we all die. It is simple math." "It's cowardice," Eva spat. Adam's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tongue." "No," Eva said, struggling to sit up, wincing as her knee throbbed. "It's fear. You're so afraid of losing that you throw away anything that isn't perfect. You think strength is just muscle and teeth, but you—" She pointed a shaking finger at him. "You wouldn't have made it 10 miles carrying a burden in that storm without your wolf form. I did. I did it without fur, without claws, without fire." She met his gaze, her chin high. "So tell me, Alpha, who is stronger?" The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Adam stared at her. He had expected begging. He had expected apologies. He had not expected to be lectured on strength by a girl who couldn't even open a pickle jar without help in the kitchen. And yet, looking at her, bruised, frostbitten, her knee swollen to the size of a melon, he couldn't deny the evidence. She had possessed a will of iron that rivaled his own. "Let me see the leg," Adam said quietly, ignoring her question. "Don't touch me." "Ava." His voice dropped to that rumbling alpha command tone, vibrating in her bones. "Let me see the leg or you will lose it. And if you lose it, I cannot carry you both." Ava hesitated, then slowly extended her leg. Adam moved closer. His hands, large and rough, were surprisingly gentle as he rolled up her pant leg. The knee was a mess of purple and black bruising, hot to the touch. Ligament damage. Maybe a fracture, he assessed clinically. He reached into his belt pouch, the one he'd retrieved from his discarded gear, and pulled out a small tin of salve. This will sting. He applied the salve. Ava bit her lip to keep from screaming. We are trapped, Adam said as he worked. The pass is blocked by snow. We cannot go forward to Grey Haven, and we cannot go back to the lodge. So we die here? Ava asked. No. There is a hunter's cabin in the lower valley. It's stocked. We can wait out the melt there. He looked up at her. But we have to move. Can you stand? I have to, she said, through gritted teeth. Adam finished wrapping her knee. He sat back, studying her face. You asked why I came. Ava waited. I didn't come to kill you, Adam admitted, his voice low. I came because my wolf. He didn't like the silence you left behind. It was the closest thing to a confession she would ever get. The admission hung in the air, fragile and confusing. Adam stood up, breaking the moment. Eat, he ordered, tossing her a packet of pemmican. We move in 10 minutes. Ava watched him walk to the cave entrance, his silhouette dark against the grey light. She looked down at Leo, who was now sleeping on her boot. We're not dead yet, little one, she whispered. But as she looked at Adam's broad back, she wondered if surviving the storm was the easy part. Surviving the alpha and the strange, confusing heat in her own chest whenever he looked at her might be the real danger. The descent from the cave was a brutal exercise in trust. The snow was waist-deep in places, hiding treacherous crevices and loose rock. Adam broke the trail, his human form ploughing through the drifts like an icebreaker. He carried Leo in a makeshift sling against his chest, keeping the pup warm. Ava followed in his wake, stepping where he stepped. Every movement was agony for her knee. She used a sturdy branch Adam had snapped for her as a crutch, but she was slowing down. She could feel it, and she could feel Adam's impatience, though he didn't voice it. He stopped every 100 yards, waiting for her to catch up, his eyes scanning the tree line constantly. We're too exposed, Adam muttered as they reached a plateau of wind-scoured rock. The wind carries scent up here. Who would be out here? Ava panted, leaning heavily on her stick. Only madmen and... She stopped. A scent hit her. Not a wolf scent. She couldn't smell that, but the wind shifted and she caught a whiff of something rancid, like old meat and wet fur. Adam froze. He handed Leo to her in a blur of motion. Get behind the rock, he commanded, his voice devoid of emotion. Now. Adam, move! Ava scrambled behind a large boulder, clutching Leo to her chest. She peered around the edge just as the shadows in the tree line detached themselves. They weren't wolves. They were something older, wilder. A mountain lion, gaunt and desperate from the winter famine, prowled out from the pines. But it wasn't alone. 2 more flankers appeared, a coalition. Rare, but in a winter, this harsh, predators banded together. They were starving, and they saw Adam. Adam didn't shift. Shifting took precious seconds, and doing so would shred his remaining clothes, leaving him defenseless against the cold if he survived. He drew the long hunting knife from his belt. The lead cat, a massive female with a scarred ear, lunged. Adam sidestepped with terrifying grace, slashing outward. The knife caught the cat's shoulder, drawing a line of red, but the beast twisted in mid-air, its claws raking across Adam's forearm. He grunted, spinning to kick the second cat in the ribs. The impact sounded like a gunshot. Ava watched, her heart hammering against her ribs. He was fighting for them. The realization hit her hard. The alpha who deemed the weak unworthy was bleeding to protect a cripple and a wolfless. The third cat circled wide, its yellow eyes locking not on Adam, but on the rock where Eva hid. It smelled the pup. Adam was engaged with the first 2. He couldn't see the flanker. "Adam!" Ava screamed. The cat launched itself at her. Ava didn't have claws, she didn't have fangs. But she had spent 3 years in the kitchens, dodging thrown pots and navigating a world of giants. She had the environment. As the cat leaped, Ava fell back, kicking the supporting rock of a small, precarious snow overhang above her. It was a desperate, calculated gamble. The snow collapsed. A heavy sheet of ice and powder slammed down, burying the cat mid-leap. The beast yowled, thrashing under the sudden weight, confused and blinded. The distraction was enough. Adam heard the scream. He roared, a sound that was more beast than man, and drove his knife deep into the neck of the lead cat. He threw the carcass at the second one, a display of raw, primal strength that sent the remaining predator fleeing into the woods. He spun around, chest heaving, blood dripping from his arm. "Ava! I'm here!" she called out, her voice trembling. She pulled herself out of the snow, brushing powder off a very startled but unharmed Leo. Adam walked over to the pile of snow where the third cat was struggling to dig itself out. He finished it with a single, efficient blow. It was brutal, but necessary. He turned to Ava. His eyes were glowing gold, the wolf very close to the surface. He looked at the collapsed snow shelf, then at her. "You brought down the drift," he said. It wasn't a question. "It was the only weapon I had," she said, clutching Leo tight. Adam wiped his blade on his pants. He looked at the dead cat, then at the woman who had no wolf, yet had just defended her kill like one. "Clever," he grunted. A compliment from Adam Simpson was rarer than summer snow. "You used the terrain. An enforcer would have tried to wrestle it." He walked over to her. He didn't ask if she could walk. He scooped her up into his arms, Leo sandwiched between them. "My leg," Ava protested. "It's too slow," Adam said. "And we just rang the dinner bell with all this blood. We need to move fast." He began to run, carrying her as if she were made of straw. Ava held onto his neck, her face pressed against the pulse point of his throat. She could smell the metallic tang of his blood and the musk of his sweat. "You're bleeding," she whispered. "I'll heal," he said. "Wolves heal. You don't." They moved in silence for a mile, the rhythm of his running lulling Leo to sleep. "Why didn't you run?" Adam asked suddenly, not looking at her. "When the third one came, you could have thrown the pup and ran. It would have eaten him. You would have escaped." Ava pulled back slightly to look at his jawline. "Is that what you would have done?" Adam paused. He tightened his grip on her. "Yesterday?" "Yes." "And today?" Adam didn't answer, but he didn't let go either. He just ran faster, carrying his strange, broken pack toward the valley floor, where the smoke of a chimney promised safety, and the impending closeness of a small cabin promised a danger of a different kind. The hunter's cabin was a relic of a gentler time, tucked away in a valley where the wind forgot to scream. It was small, constructed of rough-hewn logs, chinked with moss, smelling of pine resin and wood smoke from decades past. To Ava, after the white hell of the ridge, it looked like a palace. Adam kicked the door open, his boots heavy on the wooden floorboards. He didn't set her down immediately. He scanned the single room with predatory efficiency, checking the corners, the loft, the fireplace, before he finally lowered her onto the dusty mattress in the corner. "Stay," he commanded, though the edge was gone from his voice. He moved to the hearth. Within minutes, he had a fire roaring, the dry wood catching easily under his skilled hands. The sudden warmth was a physical shock, causing Ava's skin to prickle and burn as the circulation returned fully to her extremities. She watched him. In the flickering light, Adam Simpson was less a myth and more a man. He had stripped off his blood-soaked shirt, to wash the claw marks on his arm with melted snow water. The wounds were already closing, knitting together with the supernatural speed of an alpha, leaving behind faint, silvery lines. "You're staring," Adam said, not turning around. "I've never seen an alpha heal," Ava lied. She had seen it, but never this close, never with this strange intimacy. Adam turned, a rag in his hand. He walked over to her, his gaze dropping to her leg. "Your turn? I need to reset the joint if it's dislocated, or bind it tighter if it's fractured. This will not be pleasant." Ava braced herself. "Do it." He knelt. His hands were warm, calloused, and shockingly gentle. As he worked, manipulating the swollen joint, Ava hissed, digging her nails into the mattress. He didn't stop, but he murmured low, soothing sounds, wolf noises, deep in his chest, that strangely calmed her panic. "It's not broken," he pronounced finally, wrapping it tightly with strips of cloth from the cabin's emergency stores. "Just a severe tear. You'll limp for a month, but you'll walk." He sat back on his heels, resting his forearms on his knees. The firelight danced over the planes of his face, softening the harsh lines of his jaw. "Why did you stay?" he asked suddenly. Ava blinked, confused. "Stay where?" "In the ironwood. You are wolfless. Most in your position leave for the human cities. You could have had a normal life. Instead, you stayed in a pack that looked through you." Ava looked at Leo, who was currently wrestling with a stray bootlace by the fire. "My father was the pack historian," she said softly. "He told me that being a wolf isn't about the fur. It's about the loyalty. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe I belonged to something bigger than myself." She met Adam's eyes. "I didn't know the something bigger had become so small it couldn't fit a disabled pup." Adam flinched. It was a microscopic movement, but Ava saw it. "I did what was necessary for the survival of the majority," Adam said, but the conviction sounded hollow, rehearsed. "Survival isn't just breathing, Adam," Ava said, using his name without the title. "It's about what you're willing to die for. You were willing to let Leo die for..." "What?" "Efficiency. Calorie counts." Adam stood up abruptly, pacing the small room. The cabin felt too small for his energy. "You think me cruel, but you do not know the burden of the crown. The Southern Raiders are not a story to frighten pups. They are real. They are closing in. Every weak link in our chain is a potential breakpoint." "And what am I?" Eva asked, her voice quiet but steady. "What is Leo? Are we weak links?" Adam stopped her. He looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the fire in her eyes, the set of her jaw. He saw the woman who had brought down a snowdrift on a mountain lion. "No," Adam said, his voice rough. "You are not." He walked back to the bed, sitting on the edge. The distance between them vanished. The air grew thick, charged with something that wasn't anger. "You challenged my authority," he whispered, leaning in. "You stole my resources. You broke every law." "Are you going to punish me?" Ava breathed, her heart hammering against her ribs. Adam's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. The golden ring around his pupils expanded. "I should." He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. His thumb brushed over her lower lip. It was a touch of possession, of curiosity. Ava didn't pull away. She leaned into it, starving for the contact. "But I find," Adam murmured, his forehead resting against hers, "that I am not the alpha in this room right now." He didn't kiss her. He pulled back, the restraint costing him visible effort. He stood up, turning away to check the door locks. "Sleep," he ordered gruffly. "I will take the first watch." Ava lay back, her body humming. She watched his silhouette against the fire. He was guarding the door. He was guarding her. And for the first time in her life, the wolfless girl felt like the most important thing in the pack. Peace was a fragile thing. It lasted 2 days. On the morning of the 3rd day, the wind shifted. Eva was by the stove, stirring a broth made from dried venison and melted snow, while Leo practiced his wobbly walk across the floorboards. His bad leg was still weak, but he was adapting, using a hop-skip rhythm that was surprisingly fast. Adam was outside, chopping wood. The rhythmic thwack of the axe was a comforting heartbeat to the morning. Then the rhythm stopped. Eva froze, the spoon hovering over the pot. Silence. Not the peaceful silence of the valley, but the tense, held-breath silence of a predator spotting prey. The door burst open. Adam filled the frame, his face pale, his eyes wild. "Get down!" he roared. A heartbeat later, an arrow shattered the window, embedding itself in the log wall inches from Ava's head. Eva dropped to the floor, scooping Leo into her arms as glass rained down around them. Raiders? Scouts, Adam growled, kicking the heavy oak table onto its side to form a barricade. 3 of them. Maybe more in the trees. How did they find us? They didn't find us, Adam said, peering through a crack in the shutters. They found me. They've been hunting the Iron Alpha. Another arrow whistled through the broken window, thudding into the table. These weren't warning shots. They were kill shots. "I have to go out there," Adam said, turning to her. "If they set fire to the cabin, we burn. I have to draw them away." "No!" Eva grabbed his arm. "There are too many. You'll be flanked." "I am the Iron Alpha," Adam said, a grim smile touching his lips. "Let them try." He stripped off his jacket. "Bar the door behind me. Do not open it unless you hear my voice. If they get in..." He pressed his hunting knife into her hand. "Aim for the throat." He didn't wait for an answer. He opened the door and sprinted into the snow, shifting mid-stride. The transformation was violent and beautiful, a blur of man becoming a massive, midnight black wolf. He let out a roar that shook the snow from the trees, a challenge that echoed off the valley walls. He was answering the call of war. Eva slammed the door and threw the heavy iron bolt. She scrambled to the window, peering through the cracks in the wood. It was chaos. 3 grey wolves, raiders, scarred and mangled, intercepted Adam. They were smaller, but they were fast, circling him like sharks. Adam was a juggernaut. He caught the first wolf in his jaws, tossing it aside like a rag doll, the sound of breaking bone sickeningly loud. But while Adam fought the 3, Eva saw movement in the peripheral trees. A 4th figure, a human form holding a bow. He wasn't shifting, he was aiming. He was aiming at Adam's exposed flank. "No," Eva whispered. She looked at the knife in her hand. It was useless at this distance. She looked around the cabin. There, on the wall above the mantel, an old flare gun, dusty and forgotten, part of the hunter's emergency kit. She scrambled over the debris, grabbing the gun. She broke the barrel. 1 shell. She moved to the window. Her hands were shaking. She wasn't a soldier. She was a servant. But that was her alpha out there. She smashed the remaining glass with the butt of the gun. The sniper adjusted his aim, his finger tightening on the string. Eva didn't aim at the man. She aimed at the heavy, snow-laden branch directly above him. "Fall!" she hissed, and pulled the trigger. The flare gun kicked like a mule. The red phosphorus streak shrieked through the air, slamming into the pine bough. The explosion of heat and force snapped the branch. 1,000 pounds of snow and timber crashed down on the sniper. He didn't even have time to scream before he was buried. The sound distracted the wolves. Adam, seizing the split second of confusion, tore the throat out of the second attacker. The 3rd wolf, seeing the tide turn and their sniper gone, turned tail and fled into the woods, yelping in terror. Adam stood amidst the carnage, his chest heaving, his black fur matted with blood that wasn't his. He looked toward the window. He looked at the smoking flare gun in Ava's hand. He shifted back, staggering slightly as he walked toward the cabin. Ava threw the bolt and practically fell out the door to meet him. He collapsed into the snow, clutching his side. A deep gash ran along his ribs, a parting gift from one of the raiders. "You missed," he wheezed, grinning up at her through the pain. "You aimed for the tree." "I was improvising," Eva sobbed, pressing her hands against his wound to staunch the flow. "You saved me," Adam said, his voice filled with wonder. "Again." "Shut up and let me fix you," Ava said, trying to pull him up. "Ava," he said, stopping her frantic movements. He looked at the dead raiders, then at the vast, empty woods. "They know we're here. The one that ran. He'll bring the rest. The main war party." "Then we run," Ava said. "No," Adam shook his head. "I can't run fast enough like this, and you can't walk." "Then we fight," Ava said fiercely. "No," Adam said softly. "We choose." The night came fast, bringing with it a biting cold that seeped through the cracks in the logs. Adam lay by the fire, his side stitched and bound. He was healing, but the poison on the raider's claws, wolfsbane, a coward's weapon, was slowing him down. He was feverish, his skin burning hot. Ava sat beside him, changing the cool compress on his forehead. Leo was curled against Adam's good side, acting as a furry anchor. "They will be here by dawn," Adam murmured, his eyes closed. "A raiding party, 20 strong." "We can head for the caves again," Ava suggested, though she knew it was hopeless. "No." Adam opened his eyes. They were glassy, but the gold burned bright. "There is only one way to stop them. I have to go back to the Ironwood." Ava froze. "What?" "If I return, if I challenge the raiders openly with the full might of the Ironwood pack, I can crush them." "But the council," Ava whispered. "They think you're dead, or worse, a traitor. You ran off to save the defect and the Wolfless. If you go back, they'll demand answers. They will demand the pup," Adam finished, "and they will demand your exile." The silence in the room was deafening. "So that's the choice," Ava said, her voice trembling. "You go back, you reclaim your crown, you save the territory, and you give us up." Adam struggled to sit up. He grabbed her hand, his grip weak but desperate. "If I don't go back, the raiders will sweep through this valley. They will find us, and they will kill all of us. If I go, I can divert them. I can lead the war away from you." "And then," Eva asked, tears spilling over, "do you come back for us?" Adam looked away. "An alpha cannot have a wolfless mate. The law is absolute. If I reclaim my position, I am bound by the old ways." Eva pulled her hand away. It felt like he had slapped her. "So we were just a holiday, a rebel phase before you went back to being the Iron King?" "No!" Adam roared, the sound cracking in his damaged throat. "You are everything. Do you not see? I am trying to save your life." "I don't want a life where you're a stranger," Eva shouted back. "I walked 10 miles in the snow for a chance at something real. I won't let you throw it away for a throne made of bones. It is my duty." "Screw your duty." Eva stood up, looming over him. "Your duty is to the pack. Well, look around, Adam. We are your pack now. Me, Leo. We are the ones who bled for you. We are the ones who saved you. Those wolves in the stone castle. They would have let you die if you showed a hint of weakness. I held you when you were broken." Adam stared at her. The fever burned in his veins, but her words burned hotter. She was right. The Ironwood pack was built on power, on transaction. This was built on sacrifice. "If I stay," Adam whispered, "we die together." "Then we die together," Ava said, dropping to her knees and grabbing his face. "But we die free. We die as us." She kissed him. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was desperate, salty with tears, and fierce with the terrifying clarity of the end. Adam made a noise in his throat, a surrender, and kissed her back. He poured every ounce of his unsaid feelings into it, claiming her, marking her soul since he couldn't mark her scent. When they broke apart, breathless, the fever seemed to have receded from Adam's eyes, replaced by a cold, steel resolve. "No," Adam said. "We don't die." He looked at the map on the wall. He looked at the flare gun. He looked at Leo. "We don't run to the caves," Adam said, his voice gaining strength. "And I don't go back to the ironwood to beg." "Then what?" "We go to the pass," Adam said, standing up, ignoring the pain. "The avalanche you started on the ridge, it blocked the upper trail. But if we can trigger a second slide at the Narrows..." "We cut off the valley," Eva realized. "We seal the raiders out. And we seal ourselves in," Adam said. "Cut off from the ironwood, cut off from Grey Haven, we would be on our own. No support, no trade, just us, the winter, and the wild." He held out his hand to her. "I am done being the alpha of a pack that leaves its young to die," Adam Simpson said. "I am starting a new pack, the pack of the castaways, the pack of the broken." He looked at Ava with a love so intense it made her knees weak. "Will you be my beta, my omega, my everything?" Ava looked at the hand. It was a proposal. It was a resignation. It was a revolution. She took it. "Let's bring down the mountain," she said. "A simple question. What if strength isn't about who you leave behind, but who you carry?" Adam and Ava proved that the true measure of a pack isn't the sharpness of its fangs, but the depth of its heart. They showed us that sometimes the defects are actually the glue that holds the world together, and that love, when fierce enough, can bring down mountains. If this story moved you, if you believe that every soul deserves a fighting chance, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's build our own pack, right here, one story at a time.